This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast, Season 4, Episode 29. My name is Tim Mitchell. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
And we also have Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Alrighty. So we have some fact check. I think Jaime should, in Canadian parlance, we talk about, getting a penalty and having to go to the penalty box and hanging your head in shame. And I believe Jaime Lopez Jr. should be hanging his head in shame for not knowing that the Lincoln Memorial is that the Lincoln statue is on the Lincoln Memorial on the back of the American penny. That said, I have a link here to the Lincoln Memorial, which we were kind of debating as to whether it's the building or the statue, and it turns out it actually, in fact, is the building. It was built in 1922, or I guess consecrated in 1922, and it was built by architect Henry Bacon, presumably American, and he designed the memorial and its interior, and the central statue, which is called Abraham Lincoln, which is also dates from 1920, was by Daniel Chester French, and it was carved by the Piccirilli brothers. So I don't know. There you go.
That's a lot of information about that statue now.
Yeah, and it's on the back of the American penny, in case you weren't paying attention.
If you look really closely.
Yeah, you have to look really close. And I think I probably discovered that when I was like maybe 9 or 10, but what can I say? And the monorail in Seattle is actually called the Seattle Center Monorail. So, and I've got a link here in the show notes for that. And I was talking about last week about the Disney show about the behind-the-scenes sort of thing, Boba Fett. I think I said Beneath the Mask. Is actually Under the Mask is the name of the show. I had trouble looking for Beneath the Mask. That could explain why.
I mean, I don't want to fact check the fact check, but I looked through the video and it says Under the Helmet. Is that different from like Canada to USA? Like, I'm not going to say that they don't have to change names for like trademark reasons. I'm looking 12 seconds into the video. It says Under the Helmet, The Legacy of Boba Fett. And I'm going,
okay. Hang on. Do. This just in, real-time follow-up. The name of the show is Under the Helmet. There, okay.
And we saved ourselves next week's fact check right there.
So, there's a reason why Tim has never been trusted to do his own editing and copywriting, so I always have to have an editor follow up on me, and that's why.
So you're saying we're going to have to fact check the fact check?
I think we just did. All right. Anyway, I'm going to throw over to you so we can make fun of you this time, talking about Starfleet Academy.
No, I'm going to get this right, mostly because I'm reading an article from somebody else. So, for our headlines, we'll kick off with some Star Trek news. We got a little bit of information this week where they were sharing a little bit of information on the good folks at Deadline that, while we have been getting a barrage of Trek, we talked about the fact that we're going to jump straight from Discovery into Prodigy, back to Discovery, back into Picard, back into Strange New Worlds. And so it just keeps on going, and we'll have Trek until summer. There's more Trek coming. We've got not only the Section 31 series that I think we all have been anticipating, the one starring the Emperor Georgiou, but we got news this week that we're going to be seeing a Starfleet Academy series, which is apparently in development with the CBS studios. So, yeah, we knew that Michelle Yeoh is, she left midway through last season of Discovery and, sort of headed back to parts unknown. We knew that she was probably going to be the header for that spinoff on Section 31. And yeah, there's the story here that says that Starfleet Academy is believed to be the next series in development. Right behind that, it'll be pitched to Paramount Plus shortly, and the hope is to get it going in the next year. So, I think it's a no-brainer. I think a Starfleet Academy series is, it pretty much writes itself. You can tell a whole ton of different types of stories set in that world with the sort of, the young up-and-comers and everything else. We're kind of getting that in Prodigy right now a little bit, although a bit of a different circumstance. But you have any strong feelings on a potential Starfleet Academy and Section 31 series?
I think they could both be good. I don't see any real obvious problems with them. I don't know that I'm necessarily gung-ho about seeing them, but that's not really a knock against the topics. It's just without knowing the sort of premise, it's hard to say. Like, what if there's something wacky, like the Section 31 one is like a dark comedy sort of thing, right? It could be that. What if the Starfleet Academy one is kind of more like Riverdale or something, right? Like those would probably change.
Could it be like, Fame, or would it be more like Welcome Back, Kotter? There's kind of a, they can go any way with that, right?
Yeah, and I think Trek has been pretty solid in the newer streaming world, so definitely put it on the list for stuff to watch. Definitely stuff that will have me at least checking it out. I wish they would give us more, though. Like, I understand the pandemic is causing chaos for this, but I want to see teasers. I want to see pictures of their hands as a weird sly reference to the Rings of Power teasers that came out on the internet today for Amazon's Lord of the Rings prequel.
Yeah, that made me laugh. Yeah, where it's like everybody's hands, but no idea whose hands are whose.
Okay.
How about you, Tim?
To be honest with you, I keep forgetting about Section 31 show. I mean, it sounds like an interesting thing. I mean, I really enjoyed the Section 31 episodes on Voy, and and also I think they did some Section 31 stuff in Enterprise as well, right? Starfleet Academy, I don't know. I guess it depends on how it works out. I mean, what is it like? Oh, this week we're studying for the Kobayashi Maru, and who's dating who and that kind of stuff. Those bits have been played out.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how do they keep it fresh? But I mean, they almost did a pilot for a Starfleet Academy one way back in TNG, right? Like they kind of
with Tom Paris,
well, then Tom Paris before Tom Paris. Yeah, they really had the makings of one. I think it would be pretty, like I said, you could tell a lot of different stories set in that world. And again, we talk about how Prodigy is sort of bringing in a new audience. So imagine Riverdale, but Star Trek.
Yeah, and they kind of did that with Chris Pine and that class of I think the first Star Trek movie, the first new gen, or what do you call it? What's it called again? The
Kelvin timeline.
Kelvin timeline. Yeah, they started that in where they were both cadets, right? And kind of they get attacked and they all get enlisted, and away you go. And next thing you know, he's the captain of the ship, right? So yeah, cool.
All right.
And how would I own a piece of Star Trek history? That's what I want to know.
Well, we talked about this last year. There was a fun auction that went up where they were selling off some classic Star Trek stuff, including some stuff from Discovery and a few different things. This one's very cool. So I've got a link here in the show notes to an auction that's now going on at Heritage Auctions, where they are auctioning off a lot of cool stuff from the original series. So you can get Majel Barrett's #1 tunic from the pilot, the Cage. Opening bid is a crisp $4,000 US, which is, all things being equal, not a lot for something like that.
Not a lot, yeah.
They've got they've got a full Captain Kirk tunic and pants from a season 1 episode. Bidding on that is $40,000 to start. That's the full uniform, pants and top. They've got all kinds of
not the boots. You gotta have the boots though.
No boots, I know. They've got a full DeForest Kelley Bones McCoy outfit with the short sleeves. That's going for $20,000 to start. These are the opening bids, of course. They've got a collection of bridge buttons starting for $2,000. They've got original Klingon uniforms. They've got, my personal favorite is the Mirror Universe uniforms, the original Mirror Universe.
I thought you were going to say the XO3 blue-green male panel jumpsuit.
That one's pretty good. But I got to say, I love the William Shatner Captain Kirk alternate universe ensemble from Mirror, from the original episode, The Mirror Universe. $30,000 is the opening bid for that one, and that's again pants and the top with the waist sash. I mean, that's pretty fantastic. If you're like looking for the ultimate dream date, you can get like the little mini skirt models with the boots included. If you want to play a little game of dress up. Yeah, this is a really, really fun auction. Like some of the stuff in here, they've got a pair.
Spock's ears are back too.
Pair of Spock's ears. Yeah, they certainly run no shortage of those. And again, not crazy, all things being equal. $2,600 is the opening bid. Again, you never know how these things are going to go, but yeah, it's a fun one. They've got the plaster cast for the Salt Vampire. Yeah, some really, really fun stuff mixed into this auction. So yeah, if you want to own a little piece of real Star Trek history, you can certainly find some.
Yeah, interesting. They have replicas of the phasers, but not the actual real phasers like we're using on the show, right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but yeah. So 75 different items that they've got up there. You know, they've got one of the ones I think in here is really neat too. Where is it? It's one of them had the drawings, some of the original drawings of like what this Klingon ship should look like and stuff, like concept drawings and stuff. Like that's really cool.
Or the Patrick Stewart life mask, you know? Yeah. That's cool. Or the communicator. I actually have one of those made of plastic. But
the other one that's you could flip over to the second page. The other thing I have in here is the Ricardo Montalban's glove from Wrath of Khan.
That's cool.
And they do have a Klingon disruptor that was actually used in Star Trek 3. Oh, that's the one, the production Bible. Yeah, so again, not too expensive. The production Bible and ILM storyboard set for Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. So this is like the visual reference guide that they kept around for like what they wanted the scenes to look like. Starting bid is $600. That is a very cool piece of memorabilia, like the actual Bible that they used to do that.
Yeah, and also the signed posters, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to go from there, it's the Tom Hardy Shinzon dagger and sheath from Star Trek Nemesis. Jem'Hadar fighter filming miniature. You can own a Jem'Hadar fighter. Jaime, I know you're thinking about that one. It's they've got an original Jem'Hadar fighter that they use the miniature for filming the Jem'Hadar scenes in Deep Space Nine.
Ooh, I didn't see that one.
It's on the second page. It's near the bottom. And they also have the screen-used K7 space station filming model miniature from the classic episode Trials and Tribulations.
Yeah, there's some neat stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. Again, obviously, you know, you got to be pretty invested. But Admiral Catherine Janeway's stunt double Starfleet uniform from the final episode Endgame of Voyager. Not actually worn by Kate Mulgrew, but still pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you sort by weird stuff like least active bids, if you wanted the "it's a fake" guy from In the Pale Moonlight DS9, Stephen McHattie, Romulan Senator Vreenak, 2-piece costume is only $1,000 on the opening bid.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
Wow.
The Dr. Carol Marcus's full 4-piece signature costume from Wrath of Khan,
only $3,000. It's not too bad at all.
Again, these are the opening bids, but you know, I imagine they'll keep going up. So there's 18 days as of this recording for you to bid on. So plenty of time when you hear this. If you're really into the Trek and you want to have something, or you know, say somebody's birthday's coming up or anniversary gift or something, you know, just leave this, you know, send this to your partner, put it in an email, leave it lying open on your desktop.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the signed posters are cool too. I mean, like just the authenticity of the signatures. Like you know, like a Leonard Nimoy, you're not going to get him to sign anything anymore, right? So that's cool.
Yep.
Like they got pretty much the whole cast on some of these things. I wonder where they got these from. I know where they obviously got the uniforms and stuff like that from. Actually, the actual show, right? Because these are the legit ones, right? Mm-hmm. It is cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess if you're a real Star Wars, you're a Star Trek nut, you know, then this is the thing for you.
You have to save the Star Wars stuff for the Boba cast.
Yes, true. Yeah, for the people watching beneath the mask.
That's right.
This is going to have a different title every time we say it.
The Canadian knockoff version. It's like Under the Hood.
Yes, the Beachcombers episode version. All right. Jaime, what do you got for us this time?
Paramount Plus is expanding out. They're like, all right, this Star Trek thing is a pretty good gravy train. It brings in all the monies. But what else are we going to have besides that? And they've come out with the official trailer for the Halo TV series or streaming series, releasing on March 24th. I don't know what they did over there in Canada, but here in the United States, it was during the halftime show for the AFC title game in the NFL playoffs.
I think it was run during a commercial for the rioters in Ottawa is what they did here.
That's right. I think we probably got it on social media, like, most of these things, they put it on TV for 5 minutes and then it goes up on the socials. So.
Or they start it and then they show a Canadian commercial over top.
That's right. We got a Canadian Tire commercial instead. That's a different thing.
Exactly. Yeah. The bike. Yeah.
So what do you think, Jaime?
It looks interesting to me. I think there's some quibbles with the Cortana design, which looks a little weird to me. I don't know why they went with that, but a lot of the other stuff, like the Elites and Master Chief himself, a lot of it looks pretty accurate. I did see some folks say like, hey, it looks cheap. I'm like, man, it doesn't look cheap. It just doesn't look exactly like a, $200 million movie. It's not like CW quality, right? This isn't like Supergirl level of stuff. This is something I think they obviously put a lot of money into. So I'm pretty entertained by what I saw in the trailer. So hopefully the series comes out good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what as more details of the plot really start to come together. What we're looking at here.
Yeah, it looks like a bit of a mixture of stuff. Like, it's hard to translate something like Halo as cinematic as it was. You spend large parts of that game alone. Right. Mm-hmm. It was pretty early on in terms of those games that, at least on console, that try to make a story. So you run into like other military grunts and stuff. That's pretty cool. But I mean, you can't make it one for one. Oh, here's Master Chief just kind of by himself talking to nobody, shooting stuff for 30 minutes. Right. Like,
well, that's why they gave him Cortana, right? So that he could talk to somebody when he's just wandering around by himself.
Yeah. Yeah. So it looks like it adds a little bit more of like the Halo Reach and other stuff. It looks like it slightly predates the Halo game itself. It looks like it's the stuff that happened on their way to discovering the Halo. Because the trailer, somebody somewhere says, "Oh, Master Chief has discovered the Halo."
Yeah. So for those of us who've never played the game, what is the Halo?
Do you remember last week's Star Trek Book of Boba Fett, where the episode starts with him on the giant ring?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
like
Ring
World kind of deal.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, without getting too spoilerific, that's probably the iconic imagery of Halo is that Ring World type planet, or not planet, installation.
We didn't talk about that Ring World thing yesterday, because there's also the book, I forgot the name of the author who wrote Ring. I think it's, I don't remember now. Ring World is a story about a same sort of deal where it's like, my question about that is, okay, so the theory of conservation of mass, right? You guys know that one, right? Like if you have an earth of dirt and stuff like that and you want to make something out of it, you have to take some of the dirt from the earth to make it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, like the moon is actually made from a bit of earth that sort of spun off, right? In the early days, mm-hmm. right? So if you have a ring world that orbits a planet, where do the raw materials come from?
So the thing about the conservation of mass is that it deals with closed systems, which a ring type world like Halo or Ring World isn't a completely closed system, because you've got, at least in most media I've seen, you've got things like energy coming from the sun. You might have, asteroids, meteors, and other debris coming from the rest of the galaxy. Did they go and
like mine other planets? Like, did they basically do in Mercury and Mars to build the ring around Earth sort of deal?
Well, I think it would be kind of like the way that Earth itself works, right? Where there's big chunks of our Earth that we don't use. We're on the tiniest little M&M candy shell crust, and even that's intensely thick, right? So the real fantasy seems to be if you were to peel off that shell and flip it around, would we be able to get around without having the delicious molten core? Providing
I love that you're stretching this metaphor through the whole thing, by the way.
But I mean, the thing about it is though, like if you make the Earth lighter, wouldn't it necessarily affect its orbit around the sun and therefore all of our weather?
Yeah, so you have to assume that there's a lot of technology involved in keeping these rings rotating so that you just float off into space. You have God, is it centripetal force Is it centripetal force that keeps you in?
The other one doesn't exist. Mark already educated us on that.
Right. And you would also have to make sure that you have some source of material coming in, right? Like the magma and the core do useful
that's what I mean.
things.
They'd
for
have
the
to mine
planeters.
other planets to bring materials to create the ring, right?
Well, it depends on how they ended up constructing it. That could be one case. It could be taking an existing planet and terraforming. This is the area where it definitely gets into the science fiction of like, you know, how much technology do you need to do that sort of stuff? Non-trivial, which is where, the closest thing we saw in Star Trek was in the Relics episode of TNG. Remember, they went into the Dyson sphere. It was, instead of a singular ring, it was a whole sphere around a star of like, hey, there's all this free energy.
Well, that was another question too. Like, I think the ring world was the first thing, but the second thing, I just remembered now that you said that, you know, that video I put a link in about all the different sizes of the ships and stuff like that. It ends with a Dyson sphere.
Which that would have to be the size of a galaxy, theoretically, right?
Well, theoretically, and the thing is, where did they get the raw materials to build the Dyson sphere?
Yeah, although it's funny if you think about it. So take an extreme version of what's happening on Earth. And some might argue it's not that extreme, but the idea that a planet is being basically used up. You're polluting it, you're damaging it, you're doing all that stuff. Yeah. In theory, you could take the raw materials that are on a planet and use them to build an orbiting facility, basically an artificial world, using the materials from that planet if the planet is no longer really sustainable, right?
Yeah, viable. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's probably open to interpretation, but yeah, scientifically, I guess it makes sense if you think perhaps that world was constructed as a replacement for a dying world.
True.
Or alternatively, they basically raided another world, destroyed that one, and made the stuff they needed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, like they sacrifice one world for another sort of deal, or like, I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's interesting, like all these, like I'm watching The Expanse, and again, that's another show where there's a whole lot of material out there that, where did it come from, and who stole it from who, and so on and so forth, right? Yep. Anyway, just, you know, just putting it out there, like, since you brought up the Halo. So yeah, back to the Halo and back to Master Chief.
Hang on, just going to throw one in. Larry Niven is the name you're looking for. Larry Niven was Ringworld.
Larry Niven is Ringworld. Thank you very much. Yes, I knew it was something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. That was our real-time follow-up.
Yeah, I don't know what this will appear on now that I think about this for Canadian audiences, because for me, since this is coming out on March 24th, we'll be in the throes of, if not Disco, then probably Picard. So Halo is essentially free for me because I'm already paying for Star Trek on Paramount Plus. Do we have news on where this is coming out for Canadian audiences?
No, we don't.
If Tim wants to jump ahead to his Halo-related story, I can look it up for you.
Oh, Bungie, yes, Sony, Bungie, Sony. All right, so yeah, I guess you're right. So I think, trying to remember who was that. So Sony is apparently buying Bungie, the creators of Destiny, developer of Destiny, and the original creator of Halo. I showed the video of Halo being introduced by Steve Jobs on Mac OS, which is kind of interesting since it didn't actually happen. But I think last week or last month we had, I'm trying to brain fart here on who bought who, the competitor of Bungie. Help me now, Microsoft?
So Microsoft
bought Activision.
Yeah, Activision, Blizzard, King.
Blizzard, right?
For like $68 billion or so. Yeah. So that brings in
Blizzard.
Overwatch.
Blizzard is Activision, right? Is that correct?
Activision Blizzard is the combination of Activision and Blizzard. True. Right. And I didn't know that they had King as well. So Candy Crush, StarCraft, Overwatch, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Diablo are the series that the big heavy hitters that are immediately in Microsoft's control.
It might cost a couple bucks.
Yeah, but I mean, by comparison, Sony getting Bungie for $3.6 billion seems like, you know, dollar store prices of like, oh man, that's pretty cheap by comparison to $60-some billion. It's almost $70 billion.
Sorry, just to circle back to our previous Halo story, a quick scan seems to show that it is being filmed here in Ontario, and it is listing everywhere as Paramount Plus. So we talked about this when we were talking about the South Park mini movies that they put out there. Those are available here in Canada. You can get Paramount Plus in Canada. It's possible that there is no partnership, that we're now going to start seeing that migration away from the licensing or syndication to Canadian television. And if you want to watch it, you're watching it on Paramount Plus.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Well, honestly, obviously I'm sure they paid a pretty penny for it to have the rights on CTV Sci-Fi and Crave and give them the materials and everything. But, you can make a case that Paramount is better served to beachhead by putting more content onto that service and making Canadians pay for it just like Americans pay for it.
All right. Sad news is Howard Hesseman passed away last week at the age of 81. He had some surgery last year, didn't go terribly well, and unfortunately we lost him. But what's interesting is a gentleman that I follow, a Canadian broadcaster named Alan Cross, he's doing the history of new music for a long, long time, and we've talked about him on More Than Just Code many times. Someone who's interesting to follow, and I've referenced him before. But what's interesting is he's done an obituary of not Howard Hesseman, but of Dr. Johnny Fever, who is one of the characters that Howard Hesseman is most known for playing. And so it's made up of fan collected stories or lore about the character Dr. Johnny Fever, like what his real name was. John R. Caravella is who he's playing at the beginning of WKRP in Cincinnati, and all about how his backstory about working in LA, getting fired for saying booger on the air. Left home at the age of 17, was a weed aficionado. He had a minor. He was arrested a couple of times. He had a minor misunderstanding with 145 Mexican cops once.
He does mention that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he ended up in the sleepy WKRP. By the way, which WKRP was the name was created because there is a WKRQ in Cincinnati, but WKRP was supposed to be analogous to W crap.
Yep.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, and of course Andy comes on and Andy Travis comes on and turns it into a rock and roll radio station and gives new life to Johnny Fever, and Venus Flytrap joins to work with Johnny and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, it's really interesting right up here. An obituary to Johnny Fever, not necessarily because obviously when Howard Hesseman dies, the character dies with him. And it's funny, when he, I was watching the little clip. There's a clip here, I think actually. He's doing his bit on the radio, and he's like, and this is, and he can't remember his name. He looks at his coffee cup and
he's got him all crossed out. Yeah.
So he's had a couple of names over the years, and that was when he was John Carvella.
Yeah, Caravella. Yeah, Johnny Caravella.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, again, I'm not, obviously I'm sentimental to a point. I don't get really upset, but WKRP is probably my all-time favorite sitcom. Grew up watching it, loved it. It is such a funny show, such a perfect little show, and we've seen some of the previous stars pass away. Frank Bonner died a few years ago. He famously played Herb Tarlek. Obviously, we've lost, Gordon Jump died many years back, the big guy. And it's sad to see that generation sort of slipping away in front of us. But between his role as Johnny Fever on that show, and then he did a 4-year run on a show on ABC called Head of the Class, which I was also very fond of. That was about a group of high school geniuses who needed a little street learning from this sort of more down to earth, wise teacher that Hesseman played. He was just a very big part of my life. And again, famous other little small roles. He was on Police Academy 2. He was in Dr. Detroit with Dan Aykroyd. He was one of those faces just everywhere in the late 70s through the 80s. Lots of good characters, and Yeah, he was never bad. He was always just really funny and made lots of interesting characters come to life. And yeah, it's really nice that Alan took the time to do this because it's fun. And of course the character, it says it in his piece, but the character of Johnny Fever was based on a Canadian DJ that the creator of the show knew, who was a guy named Skinny Bobby Harper. So little Canadian content in there too.
There you go. Let's bring it back. Bring it on home, as it were, right?
That's right.
All right. And then another little article. I probably stumbled across this reading that same thing, or maybe I found this on Facebook of all places. But Variety's worst movies of 2021. They had a list there of and a couple of different writers for Variety put together their lists of worst movies. And interestingly, just the ones I want to point out here are. Cherry, which stars Tom Holland, Spider-Man, the current Spider-Man, and I actually enjoyed Cherry. It was a bit odd for him as a casting role. He plays a kid who's returned from Afghanistan and is a little shell shocked and has PTSD and has trouble adjusting to life back in North America. And so I just found it a really good story. Venom 2 apparently is described as the sloppy sequel to one of the lousiest movies in the Marvel canon. So interesting there. I don't know. I haven't seen Venom. Maybe I think you've seen Venom, John, right?
I've seen the first part, the original Venom that Tom Hardy did. It's not great. It's not great. It has its moments, I like Tom Hardy. I think he's a good performer, and he makes some choices. He kind of goes for it. Riz Ahmed plays the bad guy in that. He's a little more scenery chewing. He kind of plays a mwahaha bad guy, which is And to be honest, I think the challenge with that first one is just it's not. It's a paint by numbers kind of thing. Like, due respect to the Sony folks who are doing this sort of expanded Spider-Verse thing, they're not doing it terribly well. And yeah, the first one was not great. They teased the second one pretty strongly in the first one. I've seen the trailer. I eventually, when it comes to, I'm assuming Netflix, I will probably make the effort to watch it just because I'm curious to see how bad it could be. But when you're casting, it's basically a battle between two insane, venomous, shape-shifting aliens. One of them inhabiting a lunatic, and one of them inhabiting, a weirdo. It's not going to be a coherent thing, I don't think.
Right. I mean, but also being the lousiest movie in the Marvel canon, I mean, that's kind of a high bar to begin with, right?
Well, okay. I mean, it depends where you're setting the high bar. I mean, obviously, I think...
What I'm saying, but the lousiest movie in the Marvel canon is still a pretty good movie. It's like,
Okay, but again, are we talking against all the MCU /Sony /Fox modern superhero movies? Are we comparing it to like the 1980s Captain America and Fantastic Four movies? Are we talking about Dolph Lundgren's Punisher? Because if you guys want to throw down, I'll throw down. Like, there's been some terrible frigging Marvel adaptations over the years. There's been some pretty terrible ones. So the question to you then, as the resident expert here, is this the lousiest movie in the Marvel? As it says here, I'm reading right out of the article, right? Okay, well, I haven't seen it, so you have to take this with a grain of salt, but I cannot imagine...
they were saying the sequel to... This is the sloppy sequel to
the sloppy sequel to the worst one. Wow. No, there's no way. There's no way it's as it's as bad. I'm sure it's probably not great. I'm sure it's probably, a little over the top, but there's no way it's as bad as some of those pre-1990s adaptations. The Captain America with the motorcycle helmet, the bad produced but never released Fantastic Four movie, those are horrible. And then even beyond that, I mean, there's been some bad ones over the years. Again, they did a Punisher movie where like the Punisher doesn't even have like the skull. He's just a guy wearing like a black leather jacket. Like, there's been some really inexcusable Marvel movies made over the years as they were just testing the waters. Some might say Howard the Duck might not be one of the best movies ever adapted from a Marvel Comics property. Personally, I love it to death. I'm a huge fan. As a matter of fact, and for those of you who follow me on Instagram, I found the soundtrack at a store a few weeks ago, and I was blasting it because it's awesome. It's like literally, it's literally Leah Thompson and the band playing songs composed by Thomas Dolby. It's like the most 80s thing you've ever heard. It's so good. But yeah, there have been some pretty terrible ones. I don't think Venom is the worst Marvel movie. It is not good, but I mean, it's a long way down. It's certainly worse, I would say, than pretty much everything that's been done by the Marvel Studios team. But again, until they started partnering with that same team to do the Spider-Man movies, like, can you point to me which of the ones were like great films? Spider-Man 1, 2, 3. Some people are quite fond of 2. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. There's not a lot of love for those. I don't know where the bar is supposed to be set for these things. Jaime, help me out. What do you got?
Yeah, I've seen Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I think it retreads some space, if only, and we talked about this problem when we reviewed Venom, that when you've already got Venom fighting a symbiote in the first movie, where do you go from there? I'm like, well, they kind of didn't really go anywhere else from there. It's not a bad movie. I have a hard time believing it's worse than even some of the stinkers from the MCU, like and not going way back in the old stuff, just strictly MCU, starting with Iron Man era, like Thor: The Dark World is definitely not one I rush to go watch again.
Yeah,
I would watch Venom: Let There Be Carnage again. I think it's fun. So I don't think it's fair to call it one of the worst. I think that's recency bias for the particular reviewer.
Take that, Variety magazine.
Yeah, it's like, if you disagree with me, fire up your Disney Plus and go find Thor: The Dark World and tell me how you feel after watching that.
All right. Okay. And the last movie that I picked out of this list, I mean, there's quite a few movies here, is Encounter. And Encounter was a movie that I said was on my watch list. I did actually watch it. I did enjoy it. It starts off as I think I tried not to spoil it too much for you, but it starts off as a person who realizes that the Earth is being taken over by aliens, and it kind of devolves into more of a human story than that. And very similar to Cherry, it's about a guy who's basically come back from Afghanistan, and I think I've probably given away too much already. But I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was really compelling. But it's funny. It's like one of these things. Like, I don't know about you guys, but whenever you watch something like I always take Lucy and the chocolate factory that she's working with Ethel, where you watch these characters and you feel a bit empathetic for them, and when they start to make decisions that are are bad, and you're like, oh, this isn't going to work out, right? And I get a sort of angst about that, and like Lucy, you're gonna have some explaining to do, kind of comes across my mind, and there are decisions that this person makes in the movie Encounter that just you're going, that is so wrong, and that's what this critic is going after, is the fact that he does make some bad decisions, and in his struggles to eradicate the Earth from these aliens, but. But I still I found it again. It was Riz Ahmed again, and I found the portrayal was really good, and the supporting characters are really good, and just generally there's a Olivia, what's her name, plays the one that won for Hidden Figures and The Help. The Olivia. What's the name of the actress?
Yeah. She was good. Oh goodness.
She plays the police person that's chasing him down, right? So
yeah.
Anyway, good. I found it. I'd be interested to see if people watch this, and I don't think it was one of the worst movies of last year at all. So there you go. And that's my that's that there.
Cool.
And then I think we're off to Jonathan for the last piece before we delve into the finale of Prodigy.
So, speaking of the same universe in which we find the Venom character, news today that Dakota Johnson, she famously of 50 Shades of Grey trilogy, is set to star in Madam Web, a adjacent to Spider-Man character, a Spider-Verse character, if you will, in a new theatrical release from Sony.
Nice.
I'm not sure who asked for this, but since they own, I guess, all the adjacent Spider characters, they're determined to basically run as many of them out there and see if they can make a few quid off of them, since they own the rights for now. I honestly, I don't understand. Maybe there's an issue with buying too much, owning too much, having too much of a monopoly in the market. I really don't understand why Disney doesn't just buy Sony at this point. Like, they can't cost that much. Their whole library of assets cannot cost as much as what they paid for Fox.
But they're not just a media company. They're a manufacturer, right? It's like so by Apple, right?
So buy the whole. But even then, like, due respect to the folks at Sony, they're not that big anymore. I don't know why you wouldn't just buy the whole damn shebang and sell what you can't absorb. I don't know why they don't just buy back the rights just to stop them from doing stuff like this, because there are great characters that could be integrated in logical ways into a Spider-Verse, into the larger MCU and everything else, and they're just gonna stomp them into the ground by making these like harebrained adaptations of movies that no one wants. And I'm not disputing that Dakota Johnson's a fine performer, and I'm sure they'll hire talented people to work on it and everything else. But so just to give you a smidgen of background here, and the Hollywood Reporter has a good article on this, but so she's been around since the 1980s. Madame Web is an old woman. So I guess not anymore. She's an old woman who is clairvoyant and a mutant, like the X-Men, who can predict the future. And in the comic books, she acts as sort of a mentor and sort of helps guide Peter Parker as Spider-Man through some of his adventures. And she's blind, she's paralyzed, and she's old. So apparently none of those things anymore. I just don't understand how you get to here. Like, there are so many other things you should be doing on a live action screen. Where's Miles Morales? Where's Spider-Gwen? Where is, insert any number of other things that you could do from the Spider-Verse that would be good. Even better villains / heroes that you could do. Like, who's asking for this? Who wants this? Why are you doing this? Answer me, Sony. Why are you doing this? From the people who are bringing you the completely nobody asked for it Morbius, and the weird adaptations of Venom, and are pushing forward with this really weird segment of the Marvel universe, while we're all supposed to pretend that anyone cares. So they're also working on the Kraven the Hunter movie that's supposed to be coming out next year, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson as his third Marvel character. So get out your slide rule and figure that one out. I just don't understand why they're making this, who it's for, why we'd want this, and what it is they think they're accomplishing other than just milking this because they own the rights.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and I had no idea that there was a younger version of Madame Web until I Google search and say, wait a minute, isn't it an old lady? And you confirmed what I was thinking, that the old lady Madame Web character is, I think, the traditional. Apparently, there is a younger version.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really weird sort of choice here, and it does feel like, all right, what do we got in the Spider-Verse? Pull that one out. let's put that up there.
Maybe Melissa Villaseñor wasn't available.
Yeah, really. Well, she's going to be in it, but she's only going to do one line, so
she'll do like one word. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I'm to the point. Like, honestly, I can make a case for, obviously, it's better for movies to have more studios. It's better to have different creators doing different things, different opportunities. It's better to not have monopolies. I completely agree with that. But when you have a fragmented license like this is what happens. You get people who are making these, and we had the same issue. This is why they trotted out those terrible Fantastic Four movies, way back when, and they,
yes,
the Daredevil and then the Elektra movie that were not frankly very good, and just all these different things. They've made multiple Punisher. They made like 3 different Punisher movies. It's because basically the rights are written as you need to make movies with these characters or the rights revert back to their original owners. So they just keep so they just keep cranking out these movies and using these characters because basically they have to put something out every certain amount of time in order to fulfill the obligations within the contract. So I guess they make like billions of dollars off of their partnership with Marvel to do the Spider-Man actual proper movies, and then they spend it all on making these crapola ones so that they can keep the rights to the Spider-Man movies. Somewhere in a boardroom somewhere, I really hope that someone at Disney is concocting a plan for how they can leverage things to be able to buy this whole thing out and just get it away from these people before they do any more damage to it.
Yeah, hard to say. All right. Well, I guess kids, it's that time when we start talking about a Star Trek thing of some type, and this week we're talking about the last episode of the season. Is that correct?
Well,
the mid-season.
We're not really sure.
We already had a mid-season break on this show, so it was like that was a quarter season.
Like the last episode of the second mid-season.
Yeah, that was the quarter season break. This is now the half season break, but we don't know when the second half of the season is.
We're at halftime now, and Discovery is the halftime show, right?
That's right.
All righty. Okay. So, this is the Moral Star Part 2, or Part 2 for those of you in Quebec. We start off, meanwhile, back on the Protostar. We start in on the ship, and the Diviner's not happy. He's still scanning around, and of course, Goth Janeway announces there's no sign of the proto core because the kids have all stolen it. Those rascally kids, he's still arguing with Gwyn. She, takes that heirloom thing and turns it into like a knife and holds it to his neck, and he says, "You forget that I gave the heirloom to you," and he takes it over and pins her down and wraps her 2 arms around it, so it holds her pinned down, and he tells Janeway says, "Should I prepare the brig?" And he goes, "Well, keep an eye on her, make sure she doesn't get into any trouble." So in other words, he doesn't take Janeway's advice and put her in the brig. Just follow that. Keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, so back on the Rev 12, Del and the other kids are trying to figure it. They're all floating around because they've lost their atmosphere and their gravity, and the engine's been blasted by last week on by the Prodigy, blasted by the Protostar, and so they decided to break up, and he's sort of wandering around, and he gets within a couple of feet of a couple of other I think they're called the Unwanted, right? Gets her, and they all of a sudden can start talking to each other, and they're like, "Oh, I can understand you, and I can understand you." And he's like, "Well, it's because I've got this communicator badge on, which is like a short wave translator, right? So, and that's why." And he's like, "Break it up, guys! You got to get to safety." And he's trying to get everybody to safety, and he's trying to figure out how he can communicate with all these unwanted people. And so here we go. So. Meanwhile, the Rock and Jankum have gone off to find the engine room and try and get everything started back up again. And these sort of robot-y things called the Watchers wake up, and I guess they're sort of like the security Roombas that travel around this what was it called, 12 something?
Rev 12, yeah, the RoboCats, yeah, these.
Yeah, the RoboCats, yes, exactly. So they start chasing them, and just as Rock has found the engine room. So they go in, and there's a big giant door, and she's holding it up for them to get in. And the fake Zero, the fake Zero, and Jankum and Rock get in there. The fake Zero has Murph in it, of course, and he's got the Protostar in his belly, and keeping him warm. So they get inside, they let the door slam, but they have to hold the door because the robots are trying to break in. And Jankum goes over to look at the engine, and he's like staring at it, and he's like, "Let me see what I can do with this thing." And Rock, all of a sudden, he says, "Unless you got a better suggestion." And Rock says, "Well, why don't you do this?" And she rattles off a bunch of things about the lithium cores and so on and so forth. And he's like, "Oh, I got a new plan. I'll hold the door, and you go fix it." So Rock, who had her Groundhog Day education thing, has figured, where she went and studied engineering and thermodynamics and, dilithium core restructuring and, all that kind of stuff. She goes and decides to take over, and she manages to fix the actual ship. But so meanwhile, Zero, who's out running around with Dal, they find a little kitty, and one of the little, I think Jonathan mentioned her last week, is one of the unwanted is a cat type creature, and again, there's another one of these Watcher things, and Zero ends up losing her arm in a tussle, and she's like, it doesn't matter, I don't really use those things anyway. So, but the cat has a manacle around its ankle, and Del realizes, I can use the electronics in the manacle to communicate to and patch in my comm badge, and then we can communicate with all these people. So meanwhile, Rock has fixed the ship, and she's reestablished the shield, so now they have gravity and they have air and all that kind of stuff, and everybody's a little less worried, except for that's that's when the Protostar has returned to come and get the missing protocore, right, which is in Murph's belly. The Dreadnought appears and attacks Rock and Jankum, and in the sort of melee that happens, a bunch of the unwanted break into the engine room, and they come to help Rock and Jankum, and the kitty makes her fangs come out, or her claws come out, and she swipes at Dreadnought's head and knocks his head off and knocks his head off and defeats him, kind of thing, right? And then they realize that while it was sort of a distraction, because while they did that, the protocore has been taken out of, transported out of Murph's belly and then back onto the ship, right? So they the Diviner and I forget who, Gwyn or whatever, patch it back in, or Hollow Goth Janeway are putting it in.
Hollow Janeway, yeah.
And of course, it takes 10 minutes for this thing to fire up, and so there's another chance for Gwyn and her father, the Diviner, to have a conversation. And so now that the kids have fired up the ship again, the Rev 12. They blast into warp to go and rescue Gwyn, who's now on the ship, being taken away by the Diviner. She, meanwhile, because he didn't send her to the bridge, she's managed to take over Janeway and, take over the ship and is working on defeating the security lockouts that the Diviner's put in place. And so the Janeway has now been upgraded by Gwyn, and to the point where she now is answering to Starfleet only, and gets in the way of the Diviner, and actually ends up yanking out his life support, and he's groveling on his hands and knees, kind of thing. And at which point he reveals the real purpose of why he's here and what he's trying to do, and he appeals to Gwyn's better nature by saying, "We can save our people, and hope is not lost." And I was sent back in time to save our people. And she's like, "What are you talking about? You said we were the only two people left of our race." And so it turns out so he's trying to win her over again, right? Meanwhile, the Rev 12 shows up, and they're trying to figure out how to get onto the ship to rescue Gwyn. And but the shields aren't down because Gwyn hasn't figured out the lockout codes, and so they decide to they're going to fire on the shield emitters and take the shield down. Unfortunately, it only lets them beam down one person at a time. But meanwhile, the Diviner is telling the story of Gwyn about the Vau-Nakat peoples, and he turns on a holodeck simulation and shows her Solum, which is the planet they come from. And he explains to her that this is, how it looks today in today's timeline. It's all shiny and new, and things are happy, and how it will be in I think 50 years time, or I forget how far in the future.
Yeah, it's 50 years after first contact.
Yeah, after after Starfleet makes first contact, he's blaming Starfleet for the civil war that erupts between the people of the planet, because some people are for Starfleet, some people are against it. They end up destroying their own planet. The big nuclear holocaust. He claims that Starfleet lit the fire and let our people burn and lit the whole thing. So he wants to wipe out Starfleet with some weapon that he's put on the Protostar. And We'll come back to that in a minute. Meanwhile, they got the kids get the transporters all set up, and Del runs over and jumps on the thing, and they go, "What do you plan on doing?" He says, "I'll tell you when I figure it out." And he beams over to rescue Gwyn. And so the diviner explains that he's going to basically Trojan. He's going to infect the first Starfleet vessel that comes towards them, and of course they don't really explain that to the kids, right? You have to be in IT, or you have to have a degree in computer science to understand this, but and that's going to, once they affect the one ship, that will then transmit and affect the rest of Starfleet and take them down, right? And Gwyn's arguing with her dad, saying, you can't really trade one tragedy for another, because that's essentially what he's talking about doing. He's trying to save his race by destroying the Federation, right, or Starfleet. And so Del shows up at that point and holds a phaser up on them, and he gets heirloomed, I'm calling it, where the diviner throws this thing around him, and I think he also throws it around Gwyn because she tries to help him out, and Zero shows up, and of course Zero's a Medusa, as we've talked about before, and yells at him, "You used me to hurt others," and so Zero basically casts off her shell and exposes herself to the diviner, and of course Del and Gwyn are trying not to look at the Medusa, because looking at Medusa will make you go mad. So Gwyn actually, who's being her head is being held so she won't turn and look at the Medusa, looks at the reflection of the Medusa in Del's comm badge and gets sort of a minor exposure to the thing and collapses, right? And where we last see her, she's sort of saying, we can't go, and of course the diviner has been defeated and he's gone mad, and we kind of, well, they talk about that later, but yeah, he's pretty much defeated, right? Which is yay, the whole thing about Death Star blowing up and all that kind of stuff as far as this goes. And then we get the voiceover from Janeway, Apollo Janeway, the good Janeway, doing training log, and she calls out 61103.1, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, I'm sure. And so they train the rest of the unwanted to the captives to fly the Rev 12 and go off and do their thing, while the kids are going to go off and find Starfleet. The diviner's gone mad, and he's now the sole unwanted, as Janeway says in her log report. And Gwyn has only lost. Gwyn is okay. She's a little under the weather, but she's lost memories of the event, so she doesn't know what transpired. And she seems to be okay. She sits down at her station and is ready to join the gang and go and return the ship to Starfleet. So they set a course for Starfleet, and Janeway's talking about each one of them, and she calls them, each one is a prodigy in the making, sort of thing. And then there's a sort of a cutscene at the end of the episode. We are on a Starfleet ship this time, and Admiral Janeway's on the bridge, and she talks about going. They've discovered the signal from the protostar, and they decide to go and investigate. And Janeway says, "I'm coming to rescue Chakotay," as we end the show, and therefore the mid-season thing. I don't know. And that's the sort of pseudo-happy ending.
Although, again, filled with ominous undertones, because now we know the secret, even if Gwyn doesn't remember it, that because she finds herself sort of stunned by Zero's effect and saying, we can't go there, we can't go there, we can't go there. And then now, of course, that's exactly where they're going. So now we know that what will be the worst case scenario is for those two ships to intersect, but they don't.
Oh, right, because the Trojan's already planted and they don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Right? Oh, I gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah.
And the ship that the Admiral Janeway is aboard, I paused it so I could have a look. It's the USS Dauntless, is what she's headed towards them in, with a lovely gray streak in her hair, looking very, very much the woman in charge.
Yeah, and this sort of keeps in with the timeline too. Although, if this, like, we'll talk about the date in a minute, this is supposed to be 5 years after the return of the Voyager, right?
Well, we'll talk about that.
Well, so, and from a timey-wimey point of view, I mean, she's quite a bit older, and she's going to look for, Chakotay, played by Robert Bertram, and we know that he's no longer on the ship, right? So there's still obviously a time gap where we have to deal with, right?
Yep.
At some point,
or at least, yeah, how that all befell Chakotay and what happened to the crew, because we did get a very slight glimpse of them in that recording that they found, right?
Yeah, the other thing to point out too is if you've watched Interstellar and you studied, relativity, you know that like being away from one world or one like time travels in a different speed, So yeah, you have some splaining to do, Lucy.
Yeah, Jaime, catch us up on the time aspect of this. We've gotten many weeks worth of debates out of the time thing.
Yeah, so the training log has a star date that I wrote down. It's 61103.1, which you'll get a few different answers from stardate calculators, but it seemed like one of them lined up with what we sort of expected. So looks like that would be February 7th, 2384. And then we were chatting about, when did Voyager end in Endgame, and it is a little bit less than a decade-ish prior to that, maybe 7 or 8 years prior.
Yep. So, yeah. So, I mean, if we extrapolate that animated real Janeway, not to be confused with animated holographic Janeway, actually is only supposed to be 8 years or so older than we last saw her in Endgame, which isn't as old as the older version of herself in Endgame.
Wait, Endgame, which is Endgame?
The last episode of Voyager.
Oh, okay.
So that one is a timey-wimey episode too, if you'll recall. So a version of Janeway goes from 20 years in the future from when they actually do come back. She goes back in time to intersect the Voyager to show them about the transwarp conduits so that they can get home faster, so that 7 of 9 doesn't die, so that Chakotay doesn't die of a broken heart and all that other stuff. So there's actually 2 Janeways in that one, just like there are 2 Janeways here, but the older Janeway is still older than the oldest Janeway we've seen on Prodigy. So all that to say, she looks pretty good. So, and both of them look back better than the real Catherine Mulgrew does now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think it's an interesting way to sort of end it up. Again, I like these kind of stories where like the audience knows the real secret, but the heroes don't, and you just find yourself cringing through it, going, "Oh no, but you can't! Oh no, you can't! Oh!" So that'll be fun. I thought her little monologue at the end was a little bit heavy-handed. Each one of them is a prodigy. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Jankum-Pog's a fun character. I don't know that prodigy would be the first word out of my head.
No,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
but there was a Hodor moment there for a while too, right?
Yeah, and he didn't even really do a great job with that. And Murph, I mean, good dog, but not a great prodigy. I'm a little disappointed. I honestly thought it might be fun if they adopt. I thought maybe they were going to adopt the cat creature, or some of the other unwanted or something onto their crew. I thought that would have been a fun way to sort of mix things up a little bit for Midway 2. I did laugh. I really did enjoy that. The first scene where the communicator helps the unwanted miners to speak to one another for the first time. And we knew that from the first episode where Dal and Rock learned to speak to each other using the communicator, and it was the first time they were able to communicate, because before that all Dal heard when he heard Rock was just horrible noises, and thought Rock was a monster, and it turns out she's a little girl. And it's just like, oh, I've always wanted to talk to you. My name is this. Oh, my name is this. It's so good to talk to you. Just that part was very, very funny. Again, it was a good little wrap up. I mean, I don't know. It was kind of weird. I mean, the whole idea of this one where it's like, okay, so Dreadnought has his head knocked off by the cat miner, and so theoretically he's defeated, and then
again, because he was defeated last week too, or the simulacrum of him was defeated, right? True.
And then the Diviner ends up getting the full Medusan treatment and loses his marbles, and they leave him back on the mining planet as the last unwanted. Now, that one also I found kind of strange. Like, essentially they've just condemned him to die. He's a babbling fool now. How is he supposed to feed himself, or I don't know, protect himself from the elements or anything? Like, isn't that basically a death sentence? They're like, he's there by himself. Is he not just gonna die? Like, I'm sure he's gonna come back. I'm just being facetious, but if somebody had, basically had their brain wiped and was left sort of jittering to themselves and drawing in the mud, if you left them alone on an isolated world with no one else around, they'd die of starvation, wouldn't they?
Yeah, probably.
That's why this is secretly one of the darker shows that we've ever seen, even though on the surface it's like, yay! And you're like, wait a minute. Even though you're right, outside of the universe, you're like, yeah, the dude's probably going to come back, right? Like, he'll recover in some way, and then they'll have to deal with him as the big bad. But from what the Prodigy crew knows, it's pretty dark. They just sort of abandoned him out there in a death zone. I mean, even Khan's crew was left on a really crappy planet, but like, hey, you're all Rambos, right? So like, you'll find a way.
Yeah. So I like what they did with the Diviner, where, you get a little bit more to the root of why he's doing what he's doing here. And they say, well, he had traveled back in time because he wanted to try and avert this catastrophe that was going to claim his world. Obviously, he's his intentions are good if his actions are bad, in that he wants to destroy Starfleet to prevent this from happening, as opposed to working with them or finding a way around this or whatever. But I do like the idea that the Diviner has a greater purpose, and obviously he's not just purely a nefarious monster, although he certainly does seem to keep taking pretty nasty shots at his progeny for somebody who's got good intent. But it's a nice bit of development for the character, but then they give him that bit of development and then they turn him into a gibbering fool. So I don't know. It's a weird ending point for him particularly, and I don't know if the idea is we'll see him in the second half of this season later this year, or if we'll see him down the road. But logically, now the goal is to reconcile this, right? So we've now seen the full half season. What are your overall thoughts? I mean, this
so this is a half season. This is not the full season.
This is a half season. So they split this in quarters to start, and there's supposed to be more episodes this year. I don't know that they're calling it a season 2 or if they're calling it the second half of season 1. There's supposed to be more episodes coming this year. What are I guess I just want to get your overall impressions. Now that we've seen 10 episodes, we've got logical sort of beginning, middle, end of this arc. What are your impressions? Good, bad? Do you want, are you chomping at the bit to get more, or are you just like, it was fine and I can't wait for Disco to come back next week?
I think I like it. I think it's a good show. I don't know that it's one I'll be, oh man, this is a must see to people. But I think for what it's doing as being a simultaneous introduction of baby's first Star Trek, but without going, full Teletubbies route. Like they're actually, doing some interesting character things, and as we mentioned, some darker things that I think even parents watching along with their kids can enjoy too. So I think pretty solid there. I don't think it will do well having to continue be this is why you're subscribing to Paramount Plus, right? It's like, you better have some Halo at the same time, buddy, because otherwise we could just cancel for a month and then come back when Disco's on and just binge these.
Yeah, I'm curious. We kind of took the piss out of the show a little bit this season by saying it's Starter Trek and Trek for kids and everything else, but I do think there's enough there that I think you're right. I don't know that I would recommend it to another adult necessarily, but if I knew someone who wanted to sort of get started on Trek, or if that just was looking for a nice light watch, especially now that you can binge it, I think it would probably be good. As a matter of fact, I expect maybe before the second part of the season, or whatever it is, season 2, however it is they're coming back in 2022, I might just sit down and just sort of power through, and maybe it'll be a better watch that way. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think it's a horrible show. I mean, it's enjoyable. I don't know if I would have gone out of my way other than for the purpose of this podcast to watch it. Because it kind of sort of has a YTV kind of vibe, which is young person's television here in Toronto, or in Canada. It's not bad as Star Trek goes, but it is like it is very much Starter Trek, like from that point of view. Like there is a lot of explaining about it. Like I don't know if a kid would really understand the whole concept of the Medusa, right? That was even for adults back in the 60s, that was a hard thing to grasp, right?
Well, in the 60s, they would have learned the classics at least, so they would have understood where Medusa came from in Greek mythology. That would be something.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, but by the same token, though, I mean, when you think about it, like the early pioneering days of Starfleet, they would have given things names that they could relate to, right? Like, oh, looking at this person makes you go crazy. Oh, well, let's call them the Medusans, sort of thing, right? Because, Vulcan has a Vulcan name, and it has the name Vulcan, right? So why, it's kind of like, we call it Vulcan. You can call it Vulcan in your language. Or I don't know how they established that, but there's always a sort of a, anglicizing or Americanizing of names and stuff, right? So
yeah.
But anyway, I mean, there are times when it's better than Discovery, because Discovery's had some odd things. It does, kind of like, I think as a whole, all 10 episodes kind of did fit together in terms of a storyline, like an arc, because they have established that, okay, these kids have found the ship and now they are technically cadets, and she even, she's called it the training log here, right? And she's looking at these kids as if they're, they're being trained by her or to be Starfleet officers, right? So, I mean, we still have the big mystery to solve. What happened to Chakotay and his crew, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where did they go?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't established that. Like, did the diviner do them in or whatever, or are they on a mining colony somewhere?
Yeah,
sort of thing. Yep, that's my thing about that.
All right, now let's talk about a crazy good episode of the Mandalorian season 3.
So I can sort of do a sort of a real rough cut, and then we can sort of kick into it, because I really don't want to spoil too much of this for people. But like I'm calling this Old Home Week on Star Wars because Boba Episode 6. Yes, so we start off with Cobb Vanth, who is played by Timothy Oliphant, comes across a couple of Pikes that are doing a spice trade in his territory, and he kind of just tells them, he pulls out his guns and says, I'm the marshal here, and you should not be doing this kind of trade here, and think twice before you think about it before you pull your guns out. And they don't think about it. They start pulling their guns out, and he shoots 3 of them out of 4, and the last one is the smart one because he puts his hands up and decides not to take him on, and he says, leave that box here, and you head back and tell your bosses, that you're not doing any trade here in my part of Tatooine, right? Just before they fade away, you see him with his foot. He kicks open the box, and it's full of spice, and he knocks it over and lets the wind blow it away, kind of thing. So obviously he's not there for the spice, but because the guy did tell him that the spice is worth more than his planet, I think he says, right?
Yeah, more than your town.
Yeah. More than your town, right? Yeah. So, and that's the beginning of that, and then we come back. Then we're back to the Return of the Mandalorian episode. He's taking the armor that he's had made for Grogu to visit his little friend, which he tells Fennec in the last episode last week. So he comes to the planet. I'm going to assume it's the planet that we find Luke Skywalker on in the second of the new movies that Jonathan hates.
Nope. You're wrong.
Huh?
Nope, you're wrong. No, it's a different planet. This is the planet where he establishes the Jedi Academy.
Right, and so, but the reason I said that is because we see when we come across it, he meets R2-D2. Of course, R2-D2. There's another famous character. Mm-hmm. Like, why not? Let's drag him out. So mind you, he's hanging out with Luke, right?
Yep.
So he brings the Mandalorian into a central area where we see these droid ants, or what do you call it? Is that what
spiders, I guess, yeah.
Well, they're called them ants in the show.
Do they?
Yeah, and they're assembling, they're grabbing rocks and they're assembling this temple thing that Luke is going to do his meditating in. But the reason why I got confused because it's the same shape as the ones that are on the island that he goes and exiles himself on in the second of, what was that called? We have Force Awakens, we have Rise of Skywalker.
It was The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi?
Yeah.
Last Jedi,
yeah.
In the Last Jedi episode, yeah. Because at one point he knocks knocks him apart or whatever. But yeah. So and we see Luke played by a different body double. I noticed in the credits, voiced by Mark Hamill, training Grogu in sort of the ways of like he was trained by Yoda. To be mindful and whatever. And of course, Grogu sees a little frog going by, and he's more concerned about the frog and wanting to eat the frog, and so he levitates the frog, and he's about to eat it, and Luke opens his eyes and goes, Grogu, and Grogu drops the frog and realizes he should be doing his schoolwork, kind of thing. And then, just as a matter of pointing out the power of the Force, Luke makes all of the frogs in the local swamp float and to show Grogu that, if you really pay attention, this is what you can kind of do. That's the lesson that's taken away there. Meanwhile, the Mandalorian's hanging around waiting. The ants actually build him a bench so he can have a nap on.
Yeah, that was a funny bit. Is this a bench?
Yeah. And then they start putting the padding down. And then Ahsoka Tano shows up and talks to him because she'd met him before, and she's like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were here," and so on and so forth. And she starts talking to him, and she explains to him that, him seeing, like, are you here for yourself or are you here for Grogu? And she says, if you see him now, you'll probably undo all the training because he's still young enough and impressionable enough that you're the only person that he's super attached to. So perhaps, I should deliver the mail to the chain mail to Grogu, and you should go on your merry little way. And the Mandalorian does, or Din Djarin does see the logic in that, and hands her the mail and takes off. And then we come back to Din Djarin goes to visit the Marshal again, right? And tries to convince him goes and has a drink with him, and they sit down and talk about how he needs him to put together a garrison of people because they're good fighters in his town. They defeated the dragon. The Jawas have the dragon skull strung attached with ropes to the top of their transport.
Baller looking sandcrawler.
Yeah,
pimp my sandcrawler.
Pimping my sandcrawler, yeah. Yo, dog, I'm pimping my sandcrawler. And I put dragons in my sandcrawler. But so he goes and talks to the thing, and the deputy comes out, his deputy, and Deputy Scott is his name. He comes out and he's like, you can't park your ship here. And he goes, I'm here to see Marshall. And he goes, did you not hear me? He goes, I heard you, kind of thing. And so they go and have a drink, and he's sitting in a bar, and he's asking about the garrison, putting together a garrison. And Marshall's like, well, I don't know about that. And the barkeep's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're called Freedom now, and we're not going to, we're going to fight your war and blah, blah, blah. Even though you helped us defeat the dragon and, undo our misery. But, tough titties, right? Anyway, so they don't really resolve that, but we get the sense that the Marshal's going to do it because he goes and tells one of the ladies there to go and gather up, or he tells the deputy to go gather up some people and have them come here for a meeting. I'm going to talk about, going and joining in this fight. And then a character appears, mysteriously, like the High Plains Drifter, kind of walking, or like Lawrence of Arabia. How I forgot the name of the actor who has that long scene in Lawrence of Arabia at the beginning where he's on the camel and it takes like 20 minutes for him just to get to them, right?
Yep.
Anyway, so we see this character coming and he's got the big hat on. I mean, I kind of sort of knew who it was right away, but I don't know the name of the character till I looked it up. But anyway, so he gets there and
I was doing cartwheels. I was so excited.
Yeah, I figured it, like I said, it was all home week. This is like fan service 101, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so he shows up, and it turns out it's Cad Bane, who doesn't even raise his he's hiding behind his hat, and he's just saying to Marshall, you better not join that fight, or
we'll pay you to stay out of the fight, right?
Yeah,
it was a business deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And of course, the Marshal's like, I can't be, or Deputy Scott says you can't be. And meanwhile, he's like telling everybody to get off the street, and because this is going to be a gunfight here. And Deputy Scott, who's a bit of a doofus, doesn't listen to him and says, well, you can't buy us, and blah 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 blah. And so finally Cad Bane shoots because I guess Deputy Scott moved or reached for his gun or something, and so Cad Bane shoots the marshal, and then he kills Deputy Scott with like 3 blasts or whatever.
Yep.
And then kind of skulks off into the wilderness or into the haze again, right?
Yep.
And at the end of it, the townspeople ran out, and apparently the marshal must still be alive because they're talking about getting a doctor and helping him and doing first aid on him and that kind of stuff, right? And then we end up in Boba Fett's Jabba's castle, Jabba's whatever you call it, and he's talking to a bunch. It seems to have gathered a few more people. Didn't really recognize all of them, but the mods are there with the kids are there. Carsadan is there. Yeah. Carsantan is there. Of course, Fennec is there, and they're talking about getting ready for this big fight, and he introduces the Mandalorian as this is going to be the guy that's going to be helping as well. And then I'm trying to think here what happened. How does it end? Oh, there may be you can probably fill in a bit more on the Boba Fett conversation, but at the very end of it, we see Luke and Grogu sitting in the finished temple thing where they're meditating, and there's a mat in front between them, and Luke says, "I have something for you," and he basically pulls out the handkerchief that Din Djarin has left over, and he opens it up, and it's a little like Jaime said, it's a little mithril vest that made out of what's that called? A material called
Beskar.
Beskar, yeah. Which is impenetrable to laser or the dark saber and various other things, and obviously you can take this piece of possession that belongs to your former life, or I have a special prize for you and more fan service. He pulls out a little mini lightsaber from a box, and he says, "This belonged to my master Yoda." So he's got Yoda's lightsaber, and he says, "You can have it, but you can only have one of these two things." And so we're left with with Grogu, debating in his little mind there which of the two things he's going to take: the lightsaber from Yoda and join the ways of the Jedi, or go back to his old life and take the mithril vest. And I believe that's how the show ends, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So lots of little surprise Easter eggy kind of characters showing up in this story. We've never seen Cad Bane in a live action thing before, have we?
Nope. That's the first live action we've seen of Cad Bane, and it's the first time we've ever seen Luke and Ahsoka meet. We've never seen that in any kind of canon before.
Right. Okay.
And obviously the return of R2-D2 and Luke, and it was a lot of fan service.
They also mentioned I've been watching trying to catch up on Clone Wars, and so he mentions her master at one point, right? There's a Anakin. There's a throwback to Anakin, right?
Yeah, Luke says something, and she says, "So much like your father."
Right, that's what it is. Yeah.
Because of course she'd know, as that was her former master.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird how this show has taken a hard left turn into something completely else. Now, maybe it's because they're really focusing on the interconnectivity between the different shows. So Boba Fett, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, all these things.
Clone Wars.
Well, this, particularly if you're a Clone Wars and Rebels fan, you're getting fan serviced like crazy here. But it really does seem like the Boba Fett part of the book of Boba Fett is like the least important. He got some lines in this one. He got to say like 4 lines, but it really has taken a complete turn away from being the book of Boba Fett. Since we sort of got his backstory wrapped up, and since we sort of got this sort of stage set, it's really gone to somewhere else. And not in a bad way. Like, I thought last week's episode was really good. I thought this week's episode really good. It's just a real departure from where they were to where they're going. The one thing you didn't mention was the bombing too, right? The bombing of the casino, the club, the nightclub.
Oh, right. That's what I forgot to mention. Yes, exactly.
So at one point, towards the end of the episode, we see 2 Pikes walk into a bar, which sounds like a great setup for a joke. 2 Pikes walk into a bar, and it's the bar that we've seen repeatedly. Jennifer Beals' character is there, and and they come and they sort of sit at a table. They've got a box with them, and they order a drink, and then while the drinks are headed towards their table, you see them walk out the front door, and then somebody sort of says, "Oh, you forgot your," and then you hear kaboom, and theoretically, this establishment is blown to smithereens. So more escalation of the Pikes and their things. And, this does tie back to, and they showed it in the previously on thing at the beginning of the episode, but Boba had walked into that place in the first episode and said, this place is now under my protection. So that's obviously more paying forward to now. He had said he would protect this place. He didn't. And now what? But yeah, I mean, I thought it's funny because when I first saw the Luke character, I was like, is this going to be good or is this going to be Tarkin? And I thought it was pretty good. The mouth was a little off. The face was good. It was a little rigid. The CGI, I thought it was a little rigid, but it looked good until he spoke. And then you were like, ooh, not as good. But it was still kind of a thrill to have. It was okay. It was still kind of a thrill to have.
It was better than Tarkin. It was better than Leia, for sure.
It's getting better. Mm-hmm. And I said that in the moment to Xavier. We were watching it together, and I said, it's getting better. It's not quite there, but I'm encouraged by the leaps that they've taken from Rogue One forward to now of trying to integrate these abilities. And it's wonderful that they've got Mark doing the voice, because obviously, that's such a wonderfully distinctive thing. They could have just recast and had somebody else play it, but it looks like Mark from 1985. Like, it's great. And R2 again, a big thrill, and Ahsoka again. It's funny because she sort of, she's there to sort of warn Din Djarin away, but really it's about just sort of establishing that she's part of this whole thing, that she's part of the big picture, and reminding you that she's there. But for me, this episode was Cad Bane. I was praying when they were talking about this and they were doing the sort of the bounty hunters and Chrysanthemum showed up. I had it in my mind, I wonder if they would do that. And when I saw that silhouette walking through the desert, I was so excited. Cad Bane is one of my favorite characters from Clone Wars and into the whole animated side of the Star Wars universe. And he's just such a great bad guy, and to see him brought to life like that, and it's just perfect. Like his teeth and the big red eyes and the hat. It's such a thrill. I'm so excited that he's part of this, and I hope this is obviously not the last we'll see of him. I hope that he becomes a regular, recurring character, because he's such an interesting one, and I'm so excited that they've brought him into the live action version of all this stuff. Now there will be a lot of people who are like, who the heck is that? Xavier hasn't watched very much of the Clone Wars, hasn't watched any Rebels, and so he was very much like, I know I should know who this is. And I think for a lot of the sort of lay audience or less absorbed into the full canon side of it, I could see people just being like, well, I guess he's supposed to be a bad guy working for the Pikes, and it works like that too. But yeah, for long-standing fans of the animated side of the Star Wars universe, this was such a thrill.
Yeah. Well, even Ahsoka being in the show generally, right? So.
Yeah. Although
she's a major character in Clone Wars, right?
She is. She's in almost every episode. She's arguably the central character of Clone Wars, and she's actually a pretty important character in Rebels as well. So
yeah, I mean, like the whole of. I mean, I'll probably talk about it in the watch list, but I mean, like I can say now that like if you watch the Clone Wars, it's sort of like trying to get Anakin from being a decent Jedi to being Darth Vader. Like you can see the sort of struggles he goes through. I've just watched the one where he's the one on the planet where they're the good and evil one, and and then but like you said, it's all about the apprenticeship of Ahsoka Tano is primarily what this whole series seems to be about, right?
Yeah, and Dave Filoni, who is the sort of shepherd of those series and the creative mind behind those series, and is now one of the along with Jon Favreau the key creators to this series. he really started turning the focus to Ahsoka and seeing how all this stuff was related to sort of through Ahsoka's eyes and experiences. Again, not to get too spoilery, but the conclusion of the Clone Wars cartoon overlaps with the events of Revenge of the Sith. So you kind of see the events that are happening there through Ahsoka's perspective. And she's just such a wonderful character and so very, very richly explored throughout the Clone Wars, and then again in Rebels, and then again, we got obviously a glimpse of her in Mandalorian, a little more of her here. There's a great audio book / you can read just called Star Wars Ahsoka that talks a little bit about her backstory and stuff too. She's a wonderful character, and I'm glad that she's going to, obviously Rosario Dawson playing her is going to have her own series coming up soon. But I must say, in this episode, I think it's funny because, we did see a bit more of an adult and measured version of her in Rebels. It was supposed to happen like much later than we see her in the events in Clone Wars. It happens much later. And she's more mature and she's a little more, like not quite the young girl that we first meet in the beginning of Clone Wars. But I find Rosario Dawson's portrayal a little subdued. Ahsoka is very witty and clever and smart, and I get those things when she portrays them, but she's not, she's got a good sort of smile and stuff, but she's not quite as, again, maybe they're just how they're trying to differentiate her as Ahsoka the woman as opposed to Ahsoka the girl or the young woman. But yeah, she's just not quite as fun. So maybe that we'll see more of that. Maybe she's just in a serious place right now, but she just seems a little bit too, I don't know. In this one, she seemed a little preachy, and she didn't seem as kind of, charming as the character played by Ashley Eckstein on the cartoon series. Mm-hmm. But I mean, God, this episode was just candy. Like it was, I may as well have been sitting there with a bag full of Halloween candy, just being like, it's so good, I just can't stop eating it. Like, oh, there's Luke, there's R2, there's Cad Bane, there's Cobb Vanth, all these.
It was even a C-3PO type, not C-3PO, but it was a C3 series. That's the droid that picks up the thing and says, "You forgot your boss."
Yeah. Well, not much left of that one, but it was such a fun thing. Now, I guess the criticism you could throw at this, and maybe Jaime can weigh in on this as well, but it wasn't a Book of Boba Fett episode. Like, it's the second straight episode where Boba Fett was the least interesting, least available part of the show. What did you make of that?
It makes me think that they only have one episode left, right?
Yeah.
So it's really strange to have two Mando-focused episodes. So I can only assume that the conflict with the Syndicate will only be partially resolved, and the other stuff related to like the Hutts and etc. will bleed into the Mandalorian season 3, is what I would guess. Because it just doesn't feel like there's going to be like a real ending to season 1. It'll be like, no, really, just as Mandalorian season 3 already has begun in this series will not end until partway into the Mandalorian, is what I'm thinking is going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. I guess my concern, and I mentioned it to Xavier when we finished watching it, was it feels like Hawkeye. It feels like what we've seen with a couple of these, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We've talked about it a few times where they've built up so much in the previous episodes, the penultimate episode. I really hope they don't try and resolve all this in one episode, because it feels like there's way too much. So I don't know what a satisfying ending for next week's finale of the Book of Boba Fett is. Is a satisfying finale, ending on a cliffhanger, or ending on I guess we're going to war, to be continued in Mandalorian season 3 later this year? Like, what is a satisfying ending for this kind of weirdly, twisting and turning, not entirely focused on the character it's named after kind of show?
Yeah, we'll see if they do it as a more interconnected thing where there's no real difference between the series. It's just one long continuing story. Or if they do the Hold My Beer episode in the final one. It's like, oh, okay, they handled it all right there. But
then again, we talked about that with Hawkeye and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. satisfying. Like you've got too much to do to make it really pay off properly. Again, like, so Cobb Vanth has to get all the people together. They join as a garrison. They have to go into town and resolve the bombing. They have to get everybody together to take on the Pikes. They have to have Grogu make his decision. Like, all these things, it just seems like a really overstuffed ending to a season. And maybe we don't need that. Like, maybe the whole Grogu thing doesn't get resolved until the beginning of The Mandalorian. Or maybe it does get resolved next week.
Yeah, well, don't forget the whole story of Grogu took, like, the Mandalorian was 2 seasons, wasn't it already?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, so it doesn't necessarily mean that all this stuff has to get wrapped up in this one season, but do you think this means that Grogu and Luke are going to join the fight?
Not my bet.
No.
My bet is that, so Grogu's got the choice to make, right? And I think what he will do is he will choose to go with Mando, so take the mithril armor there, the Beskar armor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I also believe he will steal the lightsaber. So I think he will tell Luke to his face, hey, I'm choosing this. Okay, cool. And then Luke's later like, where did I put oh, Grogu, come on, dude. And it's like, he stole it. That's my money that I'm putting on it.
Grogu, come on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like a sitcom.
Yeah. No, it's funny because obviously coming out of this episode, there's been a ton of little things on social where it's like, what decision will Grogu make? I'm like, I don't see how The Mandalorian works as well without the sort of lone wolf and cub thing that they've built between Grogu and Din Djarin.
Mm-hmm. It didn't help solve the problem of, does Grogu die when Kylo Ren goes nuts? It's like, well, no, he doesn't, because he wasn't there. He peaced out.
Well, it's funny because I was wondering about the timing, and I said when we saw that they were landing there, and then we saw that they were building the temple, obviously very quickly we see R2-D2, and I was like, oh, cool. I wonder. And Xavier and I were chit-chatting back and forth. I was like, oh, I wonder who else we're going to see. And I said, maybe we'll see a young Ben Solo. Maybe we'll see other younglings. Yeah. Like, who knows what we could see when they go to this world. But then, of course, Luke says later in the episode, you'd be the first student at my new Jedi Academy, and I would train you in the ways of the Jedi. So we know that there aren't any others yet. So Grogu theoretically was the first recruit who Luke is on the verge of losing, which is pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, we do know that Luke sucks as a teacher, right? So,
well, I mean, he only did try and murder that one student who's actually his nephew. But I mean, beyond that,
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, no, I mean, again, super fun episode. I'm a little nervous about how they can try and wrap this up satisfactorily. But that being said, I would say every episode so far has been the best episode so far of this series.
Yeah.
Arguably.
Yeah.
Like, every episode has been better than the episode before it. So if that's true, strap on your boots, because it's going to be a fun finale.
Yeah, true. And we only have a week to wait.
Woohoo!
Less than a week. Right, cool. And next week we have what, Discovery?
Yeah, the return of Discovery for our final few episodes. We will get through that before we segue into Picard coming at the end of beginning of March. So,
yeah, so, well, they started the countdown now. It's 1 month away,
from when we're recording now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to our watch lists, and Jonathan, you're up first.
Yes, I'm gonna flag this, and I should preface this by saying I'm not really terribly interested in American football, Canadian football, or any kind of football anymore. I'm kind of a very passive fan, more or less now, but. The Super Bowl is coming up in a week and a half.
Oh, I thought it was Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl. Isn't that what it's called?
Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl is coming up, or Super Bowl if you prefer, is coming up in a week and a half or less from when we're recording. Now, I'm less interested in that and way more interested in what we might get from a sci-fi perspective as far as commercials. So there's a rumor floating around out there on the socials and on the blogosphere that we're going to see at least one, maybe two new commercial/trailers for Marvel products. So We know that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the next film up. So there's a lot of speculation that will be one of them. The next thing that is coming from MCU after that is Thor: Love and Thunder, which we haven't seen anything from. So maybe we get a teaser for that coming. And we might get some other interesting teasers, maybe more from Uncharted, a few different things that are coming in the next few months that are coming out. So I am not really... I due respect to people who are fans of the Rams or the Bengals. It's hard not to say Bungles. Is it just me? Does anybody? No. It's hard. What's that?
My father was from Bengal.
Well, the Bungles was the long time nickname for the Cincinnati Bengals because they just every time they had a shot, they would screw it up. Like they're maybe one of the most improbable Super Bowl turnover teams in the last 25 years. Jaime, am I wrong?
Yeah, they've had it rough. Somebody who I know who's a Bengals fan said that he gave all
the Toronto Maple Leafs of football. Or what?
He gave all the really sad stats. Buffalo. Where it was like the number of teams who've gone to the Super Bowl, the number of teams who've won, the number of playoff wins, and etc. And it was just like, oh my gosh, it's like 30 some years of sadness. So you have to go back to the 1980s when they played the 49ers twice in the 80s and lost to the dynasty that was Joe Montana. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this would be the first time they would actually potentially see a victory in their lifetime. It's not Red Sox fans who lived like 86 years before. Yeah. So, but it's up there.
Yeah. The only team that would be more unlikely to see at this point would be Detroit, maybe Cleveland. But really, like, we're talking about one of the most storied losers in the history of football. And so, yeah, there is some interest in there beyond, obviously, the sport itself. It's the history, it's the story, it's the narratives and everything else. But I personally am very excited about the potential end of this, just because I want to see all the trailers start flooding onto the internets and seeing what they have to promote for us nerdy folks, because I think there's going to be some good stuff mixed in there for sure.
And some decent Budweiser commercials.
There's always fun commercials. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger has been teasing on his social for the last week himself dressed up as Zeus, and it's clearly for a commercial that's coming out on Super Bowl Sunday. So, it's always fun to see what the marketing people come up with for the commercials for Super Bowls. Cool. Apparently it's $7 million for a 30-second spot on NBC.
Stick around for the halftime show, which is, this is the Avengers crossover here of Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
Which I think Trevor Noah put it on The Daily Show the right way. He's like, why would they put all these people together? Well, why do you ask that? Like, well, because people are going to be complaining that their TVs aren't working because it's all going to be bleeped out for every single lyric that all of us say.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. Yep.
Interesting. Cool.
And the other thing I had on here was just a quick. So Wordle, my wife sheepishly admitted to me today that she has taken up Wordle. And I've certainly seen this across my social networks. I certainly have no shortage of friends, including you, Tim, who are playing this. I have not gotten into it. I've got other things that I do with my spare time. But I just want to ask you both, A, if you're playing. I know, Tim, you are. Jaime, I'd like to know if you are. And also, what's the appeal? Why? What's the sales pitch for Wordle?
Well, so, if you're into crossword puzzles or that kind of thing, or just word puzzles, or you're a wordsmith in any kind of way, it's kind of fun. The thing for me, I want to note that I'm being respectful of people because I saw it a lot when it first came out on my own socials, and I kind of wonder what the hell do these boxes mean, and because people when you solve the puzzle, it gives you a snapshot of what you did, and it's all done in emojis, right? And so you can paste it into Twitter or Facebook, and then all people see is the emojis. And if you don't understand how the game works, the mechanism of the game, it doesn't make sense as to what this sort of little mosaic design is, right? I argued with somebody once. I think somebody said that one looked like a duck, and I thought, no, it looked more like a llama. But that's not what the game is about. So I was curious about it. I wanted to figure. So I found out about it pretty early. But what I'm saying about being respectful of it is, I have a thread on my Twitter account, and I'm only replying on my own thread. So if people want to block that thread, they can, right? So people are going out of their way to block the word Wordle. They're blocking, so entire people or entire, Twitter accounts are being blocked because, seriously, like, you're blocking it over like one tweet, really? I mean, yes, there's a lot of them. And so I'm doing the same thing on Facebook. My friend Annie Hart and I are playing, and so I comment on her postings, right, with my results, and to sort of keep it out of the, sort of like, I'm not trying to be in your feed, right, in your face, right? What it is basically, it's a 5-letter word you have to figure out. It's pretty simple. It's a 5-letter word you have to figure out. You get 6 tries, and essentially the color coding means, like, if it's black, it means the letter you chose is not in the word. If it's yellow, it means it is in the word, but you're in the wrong position. And if it's green, it means it's the right letter in the right position. I mean, so, if you're smart, you start with a word that has a lot of vowels in it. Or popular letters. Like if you play Scrabble at all, those are. Yep. So you put your first word in, and you hit return, and it tells you whether or not it shows you whether or not how close you were, and then so you would start eliminating words out of it. And if you're smart like me, you use the internet to help you with your wordsmithing. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Yeah. But I take it a lot of people aren't. A couple of, like, I've done pretty good. My batting average is I think I've only ever missed once in the times that I've done it. I haven't done it. I think 219 will be today's puzzle. You get a new puzzle every day, and it's the same word around the world, so everybody's playing for the same word. And it's been great because nobody's been really spoiling the word, which is kind of cool, right? Mm-hmm. When you think that people could be jerks and just do that, right? But yeah, so it tickles that same nerve as playing crossword puzzles and that kind of stuff, and sort of solving it, because it's funny, like, a friend of mine said it's like having to defuse a bomb, like it's very similar to the game Mastermind, if you ever played Mastermind. Yeah, so it's the same sort of thing. You're looking for a pattern kind of thing, but she said it's like defusing a bomb, and it kind of sort of is, But then, your friend Rick sort of, threw down the gauntlet on Facebook and said, I'm never playing this, and you can't make me play this. And I said, what's a 5-letter word for curmudgeon? I think,
curmudgeon, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so, and some of his friends, joined in with me, and I was thinking grump, but they came up with a couple other words, but... Yeah, so anyway, that's the gist behind Wordle. Anyway, so I'm playing it. We didn't talk about it on More Than Just Code last night. And for those of you who are not following along, it was written by a guy for his wife. He doesn't want to make any. He said he didn't want to make any money from it. He put it out there for free for people to play. He said as long as he's involved, it'll be free. And it has been. I mean, and there's also apparently a logic to how many. I think there's only so many 5-letter words out there, and it's all in the English language because he's from England. His actual name is Wordle, like it's not like a made-up word, or wordla, as we like to say in Canada, or la word. But it was bought last week or this week, I think, by the New York Times for like $100 million or something like that. Like it's a real payday. Which basically means it'll be behind a paywall in about a week, right? So,
well, it'll be part of your subscription, which one of us has. So,
which I don't. Yeah. Oh, that's true. I think I do have a New York Times subscription. Now I say that. Yeah. But yeah, you have to log into some stupid nonsense to be able to play it. Mm-hmm. But that's my my 2 bits on it. It's harmless, mostly harmless. Jaime, what do you think?
I haven't actually played Wordle, so it's passed me by so far. So it's interesting to hear what it's about, because I had seen people posting the how you did that day sort of
the
thing.
Results, yeah.
And I didn't realize that it was there's only one Wordle for everybody. I assumed it was coming from a set where everybody gets like a different game sort of thing. So the spoiler nature of it was something that was surprising to me.
Yeah. I mean that's the kind of cool thing, like, and so we can. when I post, sometimes if I post a word, like I can tell you yesterday's word was not today's, but yesterday's word was moist, which is a lot of people's least favorite word. So it's kind of funny, like the words that come up, and you don't. They're not often. I mean, they're not obscure words. They are words that you do use every day, but they're sort of like you going into it, you don't know what it is, and you have no clue, right? So, and it's 11:40 here, so in 20 minutes I'll be playing Wordle because it comes out every day at midnight.
It's honestly, it's not even the playing. It's for me, the part that's a little sort of weird is that people are posting their like the boards that they have done, like where they got right, and where
exactly.
It's just an odd thing to see people sort of oh look, I got it here, and got it. Like it's just a strange phenomenon. I must admit, I've been intrigued. I am a person who's very much into words, and that I made my living doing that stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, this whole like braggadociousness of the whole thing is a little odd.
Yeah, again, I don't know that people are bragging. Like it's kind of like if you can do it in the third row, like if you do it in 3 guesses, that is a bit of a kind of accomplishment. And I think what we're doing is we're posting it to each other, right? Not to say I'm better than you. Just look, I got it today,
yeah, I think you may be doing that, but I'm not sure everybody's doing that.
Well, yeah, people suck. That's true.
Yeah. Some people seem like they're very much being like, look at me, how smart I am. Like, I don't want to play your game.
Yeah, well, like I already revealed to you on the show that I do make use of the internet to solve it, and I'm not going to give any more away than that. Mm-hmm. Like when I get to the point where I've got 4 rows and I'm staring at the thing, and a lot of times when I'm playing it, like I'll do strategy, like I have a word I start with, right, which has a lot of vowels in it. And then second or third guess, I'll throw away, like if it's I know it's not, like if I put an F in there and the F is wrong, but I've got first stuck in my mind because IRST are in the word, I'll throw away the F just to figure out where the position for the other letters are. Because once you get the position, then you can sort of start to eliminate other words, right? So that's the sort of key to how I solve it. And then when I get really stuck, I have a few sites I can go to. That's all I'm going to say.
All right.
There's no rules that says you can't do it's not like they said it's not an open book test, right?
Yeah, it might be mildly against the spirit of the thing where you're supposed to be testing your wits, but
Well, are you telling me people do crossword puzzles without the internet in their hand or Google?
I've never used the internet to do a crossword puzzle. Never.
All right. Mr. Perfect.
No, again, to be fair, I don't do a lot of crosswords, but I've never done that for any kind of word puzzle game. I've never done. Now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever really done a cross. I usually, the way I do crossword puzzles is funny because like a lot of times, like as you know, my partner does a crossword puzzle every day. Yes, right? Yes, she does.
And she leaves them lying around, and I like crossword puzzles. I pick them up and I do them in my head. Because I don't want to mark up her crossword puzzle, right? So, and I'll go through them and I'll try and like solve a square or whatever, and just in my head, and
that's because if you actually fill it in, you'll get stabbed with a number 2 pencil.
No, not necessarily. I don't think she'd really care, but but it's just out of respect because we only get like one paper, and I like these. I like word puzzles. I like solving puzzles. I've always liked doing them, right? So, yeah, I think that's the fancy that it tickles, right? So.
All right. Well, I'll report back if I cave. I'm curious. I might watch my wife play this weekend and see the appeal.
Yeah, mine is Trek Core, a site that has all sorts of good stuff. I've gone to the audio section here for you all. So if you needed sounds that you wanted to have available for listening, to making your own little soundboard sort of thing, or if you really wanted like the hum of the engineering section hanging around in your background while you're working, there's stuff there. It's nice. It's not quite as comprehensive as you would expect, given how many different things there are on here. Definitely a lot of TOS stuff, a lot of TNG stuff. Not as much Voyager, DS9, or Enterprise, but there is a mix.
If only I could figure out how to download these onto my for my birthday last month. My wife bought me a pair of the Bose Sleep Buds. the little miniature Bose earphones that you put in your ear, and they're supposed to be like sound dampening, masking, so that you can sleep next to somebody who snores. And it's got a bunch of things you can load. So it doesn't work exactly like a set of headphones. It's not streaming from your phone. You upload the tracks to your sleep buds, and then you listen like that. I wish there was more options that I could mix in there. I'd love to just fall asleep listening to the sound of the warp core, coming away or something. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really enjoy having the stereo HomePods that I have here, because all of these shows that I watch now, like all the Star Treks and stuff like that, they have this. There's a lot of like subsonic stuff, and like Prodigy's really good through a HomePod set of speakers, right? So. Yeah, it's interesting to start, like, because you're right. I think the one thing that's cool about TNG is there's always that sort of low rumble as they're whipping through space, kind of thing. Yeah, cool.
Although it's funny, in retrospect, you think, this is the pinnacle of technology in the 25th century. You'd think they could cut that noise down just a smidge. It's pretty loud,
Well, I was going to say, yeah, like don't they have proper insulation, stuff like that? Like, aren't they all going to get tinnitus after?
Well, I get if you're working in the engineering department, you're like, nah, it's pretty loud. Okay, you're working a couple of decks away, maybe you're hearing it. But if you're still hearing it when you're on the bridge, maybe they need to figure out some better methods of sound dampening.
Yeah. Or use noise cancelling when they were filming the show, so we're not listening to the warp core engines, right?
Or they'll need the Bose sleep buds to be able to sleep.
That's true. Well, a little birdie just dropped something in my iTunes here that I'm going to talk about.
I thought you might like that.
Well, seeing as I don't have a watch list item today, although I did just do 20 minutes on Wordle. The documentary Clerk, which Jonathan and I went and saw just, I think, in the middle of COVID there. We actually went and risked our lives to go and spend the night with Kevin Smith. I think it was my treat, actually. And we got to see the documentary, which is about the making of Clerks, and also about, a little bit of the making of Kevin Smith. After which he did he do 2 hours? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. He was on for quite a while. He and Malcolm both.
He came out and this is at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, and so he and the person who made his friend who made the documentary came out and did an evening with Kevin Smith afterwards. So quite an interesting story. I don't know if I'd buy it, but
it's $10 Canadian is what they're offering it for on iTunes. It just went up this week.
Great price. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's a funny documentary. You do learn, if you are a Kevin Smith fan, I'd say it's probably something you should watch, because you talk to him, you talk to his family, you talk to his friends, you talk, his career, the ups and downs and everything else. And you realize, this guy's taken a lot of flack over the years. At one point he was an auteur and he was a genius, and then he was a clown. And you realize, call him whatever you want to call him. This dude's been, in Hollywood, making movies, making podcasts, making cartoons, doing all kinds of fun stuff for 25 years. That's not nothing.
All right, I bought it.
Look at that. I got you a sale, Kev. That one's on me, buddy.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. All right, well, I guess that's it for another week. So, Jonathan, if people can get in touch with you, where would they find you?
You can always find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews.
And Jaime, if people can get in touch with you, where would they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithTheHair.
All right, and as usual, my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA. On the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. Until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. This is CNN. What's that? Oh, I just thought the James Earl Jones thing was kind of cool. Oh, wrong show, right? If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
We got to work on our barbershop quartet there. Bye.
No, it's bye. It's funny, like if you ever watch Smart Less, they do. Oh God, I forgot to. You know my. I gotta. Oh my God, I had to put my life on hold. Right, I gotta tell you why. I just watched season 4, part 1 of Ozark. Ozark is so good. I cannot describe to you, like, it's like, you know, the thing that I forget who says it in I don't know if it's The Godfather or the other one, Sopranos, where he says, you know, you think, it's Michael Corleone says, you think you're out and they drag you back in again.
Yeah.
Right? That is totally this show, right? I mean, the girl who plays I've forgotten her name now. The young girl is I don't know if you ever watched The Americans, but she played a young student who one of the American guy seduces and gets her to spy on, plants devices to spy on her father, the Russians are trying to spy on, right? Anyway, she plays Kimmy. She plays one of the main characters. I think her name is Ruth. She plays an Ozark native, right? You know, who lives in a trailer and all that kind of stuff. And Jason Bateman plays an accountant who is an expert money launderer, right? Like he's like genius, right? But he ends up having to launder money for a drug cartel, right? I'm basically giving away season 1, right?
But that part's in the trailer. I've seen the trailer and they explain that much.
Yeah. I mean, like let's put it this way: when it came out, I want to say like Monday or something, like last week, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, I watched, and I think it's 8 episodes or whatever this half season or whatever, because it's like part 1. It's called The Beginning of the End, actually, this season. But but I started watching. You watch like 3 episodes, and you just go from. And I literally had to say, okay, I have to stop and go to work tomorrow. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna take a break. And literally, it's one of the few shows that I will binge. Like it is. I cannot tell you how good this show is. It is so good, right? Like I just want to go on Twitter and go, Ozark, so good,
Yeah, I must admit it's been on my radar since it first started. I like all the people. I like Laura Linney. I like Jason Bateman. I like the premise. It's always been a sort of sitting there on my watch list on Netflix. But I was always like, well, let's see if they get through a second season so that, it's not just like a one and done. Netflix is kind of notorious the last little while of canceling things after 1 or 2 seasons. So I kind of wanted to let it play out a little bit. And then I heard this was going up, and I have other people who watch it in my life, and they were like, oh, yeah, the last season's starting. I was like, oh, cool. So this is the last season. Maybe I'll start and I'll be able to watch that. And I thought, oh, okay. And then I heard all the people like 2 days later being like, oh my God, that's only the first half of the last season. And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I'll time my watch of it so that I can watch the last half of the season in real time.
Yeah, if you're gonna binge the Ozark, I suggest you get diapers and have food brought to you, and because you're going to be on that couch for like a good
37 hours. It's 37 episodes so far. 37 hours.
Yeah, you're not going to sleep. You're going to be you're going to be twitching at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, so good. It's so good. So good. Like even the last episode of last season was so good, and it picks up. Oh, there's a scene that because they don't resolve what happens at the end of the finale of last time, and then you see it at the beginning of this one. They don't do it right at the very beginning, but they do come back. They flash back to what happened right afterwards. And it's just like, oh my God, it's so good. I don't want to say a single thing about it because it is such an amazing show.
Quite the sales pitch.
I hope you're getting that impression.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I can't even say, okay, yeah, there's boats. I can't say, okay, there's boats. Yeah, and there's planes. I can't. That's all I can say. Oh, and there's cars. Oh, and there's shotguns. Oh. I gave it away.
Is Julia Garner? Is that the person you're talking about? Julia Garner is the actress.
Yeah, yes. She is amazing.
Yeah.
And she does this Ozark accent, and she's just phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, like there isn't a bad character in the whole thing. I can't think of any one character that, either you want to smush their face into the ground or like, yeah, they're so good. And if I hadn't seen her in another series before, I would never have realized she's such an amazing actress. I mean, there's a picture of her from the last episode that's floating around. Actually, this is how you know this is a good show, right? Because every time there's a clickbait article about what they're canceling on Netflix, right? Mm-hmm. You'll notice it's always her picture that's in the thing, because people are like, "Oh my God, no, they're not canceling," and that totally makes you click on the link, right? And they're not canceling Ozark. Trust me, right?
And they never would. Of its own accord, I guess, is the difference, right?
No, but my point is, though, is like for the last 3 years, they have clickbaited everybody who watches that show.
Yeah.
By saying, "Oh my God, you won't believe what Netflix is canceling," and it's like, yeah, so they're canceling the whatever piece of trash that was out there. The Star Wars Hollywood special or holiday special is getting canceled. Oh no, yeah, so good. Watch it. I mean, and pace yourself.
And make sure you have a bucket nearby.
Yeah, and hydrate. Make sure hydrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And have food brought to you. Make an arrangement with somebody to bring you food.
Nice.
Yeah. And adult diapers, I recommend them.
Yeah, I've seen some good shows in the year, but not many that have made me want to just sit there in my own filth. So,
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah. You know how good Jessica Jones is, and I can't think of another show. I mean, it's pretty much the only reason to have Netflix is to watch this show. When you see it, you'll see what I mean, right? Anyway.
Well, that's how I feel about Big Mouth. That's usually how I get through my Big Mouth. As soon as they drop a season, I just sit and watch it.
Yeah, same with Rick and Morty. I'm the same way like that.
Yeah, Rick and Morty, at least they do week by week, right? Like when it's actually airing on Adult Swim, it's week by week.
Yeah, but when you get a season,
but if you get a whole season at once, you're just like, thank you, I'll see you in 6 hours.
Yeah, and I was like that when you first gave me Breaking Bad, when you gave me the DVDs.
Yeah.
Remember DVDs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry, Jaime.
No, it's all right. It's a series to binge, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, I'm telling you, I'm seriously, pace yourself. Like have your partner take the remote after 3 episodes. Yeah, definitely. Or call a friend to come and do an intervention and take the remote away from you.
All right, so the Winter Olympics start tomorrow. For what it's worth. The Winter Olympics for some reason, Beijing, China, start tomorrow.
Yeah.
The opening ceremonies and all that.
And this matters to me because...
That, I think, is my point. So I know we in the appropriately named Great White North probably have a bit more of a vested interest in it because we tend to...
I think the Winter Olympics is just trying to get your garbage to the curb and find your car.
Yeah, really. But we tend to excel in the winter sports, given that that's our training ground, right? Like, as you say, just getting your trash to the corner is an Olympic sport.
Are you talking about hockey again? Are you going to talk about hockey
I'm not going to talk about hockey again. What I'm going to say is this. So I know that a lot of Canadians will choose to watch it because we tend to be good at these winter sports and therefore have an opportunity to win, which is not always
it's the only chance we get to win gold medals. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So that's fun. But that being said, having it in China, that's a whole different kettle of fish. And I'm not going to go too deeply into it other than to say I can see a lot of reasons why you might want to not watch and support something that's happening in Beijing, China right now. My question, I think, is more for Jaime. Is it generally true that Americans don't care as much about the Winter Olympics? And as such, will you care at all and or watch any of this at all?
I will. I do think that it isn't as applicable to most, or I should say to all of America, the way that, like, everywhere in America, literally every place in America has summer or summer adjacent weather at some point, right? So you can literally do all of the sports. Winter Olympics, there are places that do not get enough snow or ice to have people participating, right? People in southern states, for example, tend not to be that much represented in the Winter Olympics. So that kind of hurts it a little bit. It makes it a little bit more niche because we're not born of the snow as Canadians are, right?
I was literally born during a blizzard, like legitimately a 6 foot snowdrift blizzard, and back when I was born, my parents will happily tell you.
Yeah, so it's not as glamorous. There are good moments, and America does do good at some of the sports, like I mean, I don't know what we're going to do on the men's side. I'll see if Shaun White's got enough to do the men's snowboarding. But Chloe Kim is young enough that we should probably start putting that on lock if she starts winning this year as well. So, and the ice skating, figure skating is something that America has tended to do good enough, not necessarily the best in gold, but in competition at least. Right. So there's those. There's definitely the areas. I think it's worth checking out. I don't know that it will. Like, there's just weirder stuff in Winter Olympics, like the what is it called? It's like they ski and then they shoot stuff, and then it's like cross country skiing, but then like you're shooting and then I don't know, they do like a steeplechase or something. Like there's so many bizarre, weird winter ones.
It's biathlon. Yeah. It's I could definitely see that it's you're right. I mean, and obviously you're from a very southern part of a very southern state too, right? So obviously snow is not your foremost problem. But yeah, I find it interesting, just the idea of the Winter Olympics and just the sales of it, but particularly when it's in a place like Beijing, where the time difference is so screwy too. Where like I know in the States they're airing a lot of it on Peacock, right, on the streaming service for NBC live. They're going to continue doing those weird wrap-up shows that Americans do. Here, it'll be all on the CBC, and they'll just keep churning it out at whenever hour it's on, because they figure if a Canadian cares about a sport, they'll get up and watch it. But beyond the geopolitical ramifications of an Olympics in China again, I do think it's interesting that like the NHL now is not going to send their players, so the hockey tournament is a joke, just like it was in South Korea 4 years ago. Nobody remembers and or cares who won that tournament. So if it's not best on best, I mean, of course, Canada wants to win everything when it comes to hockey, but it's just a joke. It's just like we're sending our like 1,000 through 1,050th best players to go play. Like it's so beyond the who cares mark of a sporting event. And it's a shame, because obviously when we do get best on best, it's amazing. Hockey's incredible at that level when it's best on best tournaments. But I can't think of a reason why. I mean, I'm proud of all of our athletes. I know they sacrifice so much. I know they work so hard. I know that this is the pinnacle of their lives for some of them. I'm having a really tough time caring. And yeah, maybe being here in quarantine will change people's perspectives and they'll get lots of ratings, but I don't see myself getting up at 4 a.m. to watch an event just because a Canadian could win a medal. Like, I'm sure I'll just see it on the sports news and be like, oh, good for them. Like, not feeling very invested. That being said, I did enjoy an event that they ended they added to the Olympics a few Olympics back in the winter, where it's like the snowboarding one where they get to push each other. I don't even know what it's called. Snowcross, I think, maybe, or snowboard cross or something like that, where they're like,
what?
They're going down the hill at the same time, and they actually get to like wipe each other out and like get in each other's way and stuff. I enjoy that one.
Oh, you're talking the snowcross, the one where they're
I enjoy that one very much. It's like rollerball from the 1970s. It's
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That one I'm way on board for, but yeah, I'm not sure that there's many events.
I noticed the Canadians are really good at that one too, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, just as you said, just trying to get to your car on a winter day. That's a good training ground for that. Yeah.
Does that come out of what do they call it? What's the festival of ice that they do in Quebec?
Oh, Carnival.
Carnival, yeah, and they have Bonami. Is that
Bonhomme, yeah.
Did that come from that?
I don't know. I mean, they used to do sort of a weird, like, X Gamesy kind of thing with the Carnival in Quebec City, right, yeah, where they would do these, like, they would build these, like, massive snow runs down the steps from, Chateau Frontenac down to the harbor, right? And they do these, like, crazy shoots and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't even know. But yeah, again, stuff like that, I'm like, well, that's a little more interesting. But yeah, I mean, again, I admire how incredibly disciplined your body must be to be able to, cross country ski 20 kilometers and then still slow your heart rate down enough to make a bullseye on a target 50 meters away. That's incredible stuff, but not enough for me to sit there and watch it.
Yeah.
I was sitting here confused. I'm like, Carnival is like, that's in Brazil, and it's, according to the internet images here, way different than the Quebec
very different
one. I'm like,
much colder.
Like, there's no way they're doing the same.
Yeah, no, it's when we're not in the middle of a pandemic. Carnival in Quebec City is an incredible event. Like, so much fun. Like, crazy. Yeah, it says it's going on this year. It starts tomorrow. There you go. Quebec Winter Carnival, Le Carnaval de Quebec. Oh,
I guess it has like a mascot or something, because there's a snowman guy.
The snowman is Bonhomme. Yeah. Bonhomme is just a snowman, literally. But they build these beautiful sculptures, and it's basically partying. It's celebrating winter. It's partying outside and celebrating the winter thing. And it's apparently a great deal of fun. I must admit, I've never actually been, but I have seen no shortage of footage and photos and everything else over the years. And it again, there's always the crazies too, who are like out there in their bikini tops and their swim shorts and going fully Canadian crazy. I'm told there might be a little alcohol involved.
Right.
Quebecers generally don't like to drink much, but this is the exception. All right, so next week is Discovery's back. That's fun. And the last episode of Book of Boba Fett, so good stuff. Mm-hmm. And Disenchantment starts next week too, so me.
Oh, does it? Oh, good.
Yep, yeah. Disenchantment season, part 4 anyways, is coming next week.
All right, anyway, I guess we'll call it a day.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
All right, talk to you next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.